So I thought that Ben and I would go over with you the silly routines that allow you to stack into the Redford stack from a shuffled pack. Now, I'm not going to teach you a 10-card poker deal, because if you don't know how a 10-card poker deal works, there's plenty of material out there. Or you can buy my material that teaches it to you. That's right, it's an upsale. Actually, it's not even upsell because the book's not even available for purchase anymore. So,
or you could buy my book.
You could buy Ben's book. He's got a great 10-card poker deal. It's now an upsale again. Actually, there is the routine that I really love to do. Ben's is of course fantastic and would adapt well for this, I believe, as well, because yours is 3 phases,
yeah,
and you need 3 sets of cards, so you could adapt that quite easily. My original was in the book. The comic book thing that I released called Square, and I did it that way for years and years and years, and recently updated it and put it in a booklet called Improbity, but that is out of print as soon as it came into print and may or may not be released more formally again, but it was available to a very small group of about 60 people who now have that all over the world. That said, let's go through. That's horrible. I'm really sorry to do that and tell you all about that and say, sorry, you can't have it. But it's a very, very simple thing. 10-card poker deal. And there's so many of them. Ben's version, David Malik has a great little booklet on it as well. All that can be adapted as long as you don't do the ripping cards bits from David Malik's routine. That would not bode well. So you can see these are legitimately shuffled. And this technique is using the Brother John Hammond Chinese shuffle into size Stebbins, and from, of course, Stebbins we can easily get into the Redford stack. And it always bothered me that there was no good sets of tricks that would allow you a reason for doing the weird action that you do in the Chinese shuffle, which is an open call, 6 open calls, mind you, of up-jogging certain cards, stripping them out, putting them to the back of the deck, and you have to do that 6 times, which isn't a lot. But to make an audience sit through that 6 times is a lot if there's not a reason why you're doing it. So this is my solution. A 10-card poker routine followed by a very convincing clocking the deck routine, which is very, very easy as well, if you know the Chinese shuffle. So I urge you, learn the Chinese shuffle from the book by brute force without a routine attached to it, and then play around with this. The Chinese shuffle requires you on the first pass through to remove the Jack, Queens, Kings, and Aces and the 5, 6s, and 7s from the spread. That's the first open call. For this, however, we're only going to remove the picture cards, so the Jacks, the Queens, the Kings, and the Aces for our first phase of our 10-card poker deal. And you'll notice that I'm not removing the 5s, the 6s, and the 7s, so I'm actually going to stack into Stebbins in 7 open calls instead of 6. I've made more work for myself, but it just makes more sense in the context of this routine. Now, I've been asked by a few people, hey, what if in my language, in my culture, people don't know poker? Well, I do this all the time and I don't do the poker routine, because the poker routine is just the first 2 calls. So either I'll do an extra phase of the card calling routine and just find one more call that's 2 pass-throughs. You have all you need to do right there. Or I'll just casually do that while not doing a trick. I'll do the first 2 calls and then do the rest in front of people in the context of a trick. So you have options. You don't have to do a poker routine and the card calling routine. You can think for yourself. It's a weird concept. People don't do that. Never mind, you probably can't think for yourself. No, now I'm an asshole, so I can't say that either. So let's move on, shall we? Perfect. So
I'll do the thinking.
You'll do the thinking for everybody. So if you have any questions, email Ben. He'll do all the thinking for you. It's on record. Done. Perfect. So once you take out all of these cards, now my excuse is, the reason I use these cards is they're the most psychologically potent cards of the pack. And that's sort of true. They really are. They're the power cards. Yep. But we only need 10 of them. And you take out your group of your group for the 10-card poker deal. If you don't know how a 10-card poker deal works, it's 3 sets of 3 of a kind and a Jonah card or an X card. So if you receive that card, you lose the game. The Jonah in this case, that card is the ace, the ace of diamonds there. So again, 3 sets of 3 of a kind and any other X card. The balance of these can go away and down. So if I make my opponent take this card, they will lose the game. That can be done a number of ways. If I milk shuffle the cards, like I said, I wasn't going to teach you a routine, but I'll give you just some basics. You milk shuffle, leaving that on the bottom, spread the cards out, and you each take one. I have to take one first, he takes one after, and if we do this back and forth, he will eventually be forced to take that bottom card. I took 1, 2, 3, 4. Do I have an extra card? It's always good to make sure you only have 10 cards. How is that possible? Unless one of us just didn't take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I just miscounted something.
Is he on the bottom?
He's on the bottom. So I take, you take. I take, you take. I take, you take. I have 4 cards. Ah, there we go. I just think I miscounted. Now he's forced to take the Jonah card. Now it's likely he might take it early on, and then I can be more fair with this process and have him pick cards for me too. But either way, if he has that cards, by rules of the mathematical principles behind the Jonah card, he will have lost. In fact, I have a pair of kings and a pair of jacks. And he has, what do you got? You got a pair of kings, so you've lost. Just a quick tip. I turned cards that don't matter down, because that takes the heat off of that Jonah card, because it isn't highlighted. That just, I think, feels more fair. But now these cards are burned. No, a lot of people keep using the same 10 cards over and over and over again. I think it's more deceptive if you don't do that.
Do you point out when you do the 10-card poker deal that you have beaten your opponent by the next higher hand?
I don't.
You don't?
Because sometimes I don't always beat them by the next higher hand.
No.
Sometimes I choose not to reveal my whole hand. For example, if you have 3 of a kind, and I have a full house, which is what I would receive at that point, the 3 of a kind in my full house might beat your 3 of a kind. So I might only show you my 3 aces and you'd have 3 kings, because I would still technically win at that point. And that also takes some of the mathematical heat off of, he's beating every time by 1 hand. Now sometimes what will happen is just by chance, in those first 2 rounds, the dealer, me, or not the dealer, but the performer, will win with the exact same type of hand both times. And if you do that, that happens, and that is just purely by chance, I'll say, oh, are you sensing a theme on how this works? Like, oh man, this must be completely under your control somehow, but I have no idea how. So it's little things like that that you can capitalize on and go through. So that's just the first round. Second round, I'm going to go through and remove the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s. And again, you can play whatever kind of Jonah card force that you want to force them to take the Jonah card. Now I have 8s, 9s, and 10s, but I need to take 1 X card with it. So I can just grab a 6 because that's what's right on top. It could be a 5, 6, or 7 that throws in there. And I have to ditch 3 cards, an 8, 9, and 10, and those go on top of my now discard pile. So these are all the picture cards in a face down pile here, and it's becoming my discard pile, so they all go away. So now I should have, let's just double check, 3 of a kind and 9 and 10, 3 of a kind and 9, 3 of a kind and 8s, and a Jonah. That should happen automatically if I didn't miss any inside. It's also a good check to do to make sure you didn't miss any inside. Again, you can play whatever round you'd like. You could do this whole thing again. You could have that on top and say, look, I'll deal you a card, I'll deal me a card, we'll mix. Is this one to be for you or me? And it's alright, it doesn't matter what the rest of these are because they've already lost based on that 1 card. And again, just like Ben just observed, I have 3 of a kind, so that means you're going to have a pair.
I've got 2 pairs.
You've got 2, I'm sorry, that means he'll have 2 pairs. That's absolutely right. That's how poker works. It's amazing. And again, I kill my other 2 cards that don't matter. Right. And if he has 2 pairs, I turn the Jonah face down because it just takes the heat off of that card.
And rather than thinking of this as turning the Jonah face down, it's more of like you're highlighting the relevant part of the hand.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. You want to trade? You should be teaching this. That's a much more clearer way to say that. And again, once these are done, these all go away, but make sure that the Jonah card goes on top, because that will become part of the next set of cards that I pull. So the final round, I pull the 5s, the 6s, and the 7s out. 5, 6, and 7s. Which again, this is just observing the Chinese shuffle.
Did you have to get an additional Jonah?
I do have to get an additional Jonah, but before I do that, I just wanted to highlight there is a 6 missing because it's already in the discard pile. So when I add an additional card for my Jonah, when I eliminate a couple cards now, I'm not going to eliminate a 6, I'm just going to eliminate a 5 and a 7. Because that should leave me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which means I have missed one, which I have 10. Always good to check. If these go on top, of course you make sure your Jonah card is on top of that pile. If I put these on top and then run that single card to the bottom, I am now 4 calls away from being in a size Stebbins stack. Now this no longer looks random by any means. So I would never spread this on the table and expect somebody to assume this is random. But because all of these cards have rushed by and they don't look like this as they're rushing by, these seem like they've been mixed over and over and over and just thrown into a pile. So as long as you don't spread them, they look mixed. You can throw in any kind of false shuffle you want at this point, be it a Redfish shuffle or the Dan Fishman false shuffle or a truffle shuffle or whatever you're good at, do that. We'll of course always increase this. We're now going to do 4 final calls and get into size Stebbins, and hopefully justify doing so. I'm going to remember whatever is on top and do the silly golden force, or you can do Ben Earl's version of the golden force, which kind of looks like that. If you don't know the golden force, by the way, it's just the top card. Your left thumb goes down the side of the pack, and you just rotate that packet over and hand the audience the top card. Now this is done very casually in this case, so I think it's even more deceptive because they're not choosing. I say, hey, have you ever seen those guys who can have a card taken out of the center of the pack and then run through the rest of the cards and tell you what it is? I just took the top card, put it down, and I know what the card is. So I'm not working yet, because the less I have to do mentally, of course, the better, right? So I'm going to do the other call. So I know this is the 5 of clubs. It's important to remember that card as well. If you forget it, it doesn't really work. You explain that in 2 passes, you can figure out what that card is and refer to the presentation. So now I'm going to up-jog the 2s and the 4s, the aces and the queens, then the 9s and the 6s. How the heck do you remember that? Great question. I don't have a good answer for you. Here's the answer. 2 and 4. That's easy to remember. 2, 4. They're 2 away from each other. Aces and queens is the only hard thing to remember, but they are sort of the next thing that come along. 9s and 6s, also easy to remember because they're the inverse of each other. So it almost reminds you of itself. Those are stripped out, placed to the back. Now I'm going to say, ooh, that tells me that this is a club. Didn't tell me anything. I'm just doing what I have to do. Now to get this as the 5 of clubs, I run through the second time for the value. Now if you were really clocking a deck, you could do all of this in one pass. If you're interested in learning how to do that, watch out. Upsell, upsell, applesauce. That's right, applesauce teaches you how to do this for real and how to fake it a lot easier if you don't want to stack into a deck of cards. It'll show you how to do that too. So in this last pass through, you can do 3s and kings, and the more astute of you will notice this is Stebbins now. So I'm just Stebbinizing in 4 of a kind. So 3 king, 10s, 7s, 4s, aces, and bam. Now here's the really cool thing about this. If we spread this pack of cards on the table, you'll notice it's now in 4 of a kinds all the way through. If I wasn't worried about stacking...
And each 4 of a kind is a
Stebbins away.
Yeah.
So I know this order already. This is a really cool position to be in to do some sneaky things. If I wanted to, I could do this phase over and over and over again, really quickly, really, really impressively. but it's just not going to benefit me stacking the deck. I can have 3 cards removed, which if anybody knows anything about clocking, this is now really impossible to be able to tell you 3 cards that are missing from the deck. This is easy. Watch how easy this is. Okay, all the aces, all the 4s. Ooh, there's a 7 missing, so there must be a 7 of clubs. That must be what that card is.
3 missing.
There's 10. Oh, 3. Which way? 3 of clubs. It must be that one. Ooh, man, this is really hard, highbrow stuff.
5.
And there's a 5 missing. Is the 5 of diamonds, and we're done. You could do that really quickly.
Yeah.
But when you could stack the deck and finish with a, you know, whatever memorized stack trick you want to do, why not do that? So these 3 cards are removed, and I'm going to do 2 pass-throughs, and I will be in Stebbins. Of course, there'll be 3 cards missing from Stebbins, but this is very simple. So I'm going to up-jog first by color. So I'm going to do the 2 black jacks, followed by the 2 red 8s, followed by the 2 black 5s. And I'm noticing, ooh, the 5 of diamonds is missing. Because that happened right away, I'm not going to announce it right away, because how could you know that just by going through a few cards? It doesn't logically make sense. So reds, blacks, reds, blacks, reds. Ooh, look, there's a 3 missing. So now I know, so now I'm going to remember 3 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, 3 of clubs, 5 of diamonds, and just hold those in my brain. And continue to call those reds and black cards. Ooh, I notice there's a 7 missing, but I'm not going to confuse my brain by trying to remember 3 cards just because I find that really tricky. Those are stripped out, placed to the back. And I say, now I know, I think one was a 5 of diamonds, one was a 3 of clubs. I don't know what the last one is. Now, I know exactly where they are because I know where they were pulled from the back, so try not to say 5 of diamonds, 3 of clubs, because that doesn't make any sense. Unless, of course, you want to do a mind reading trick to tell where they all are. Make those choices yourself, or email Ben. He'll decide for you.
I'm doing all the thinking.
You're doing all the thinking. So the last pass through, I'm now putting them in chased order. So I'm up-jogging the diamond, the spade, the hearts, the clubs. So it's clubs, hearts, spades, diamonds, but I'm reversing because I'm starting at the face. Diamonds, spades, hearts. Oh, look, the 3 of clubs is missing. So if I get to that point and say, oh, by the way, do one of you have the 3 of clubs? Oh, you do? Where is it? Oh, you do? Oh, right there, 3 of clubs. I forgot the position it was in. See? Mind reader, perfect. And I can throw it into that position. Diamonds, spades, hearts, clubs, diamonds, spades, hearts, clubs, and so on and so forth, all the way through. And then you can finish by naming hearts, clubs, the very last card. And this is fairly easy to do while talking, despite the fact that I'm failing miserably at it right now. The 7 of clubs is missing. Diamond, spades. And this, of course, gets stripped out and put to the back. These are now very easy to put back inside because they're going to be in the 2 places that there are double colors. So this is easy to spot just to throw back in, and this is easy to spot just to throw back in. And now I'm ready to go right into Redford stack, which is just the overhand shuffle sequence of that phone number, which is 5, 7, 5, 4, 1, 8, 6, 5, 4, and technically I'm in stack, but if you really want to be in true stack, these top 2 cards go to the bottom, and now we are legitimately in Redford stack. So there you are. That's how you do it. Any questions?
This just came to you in a dream.
Mostly, yeah. over many, many years.
Awesome.
More nightmares, really.
Came to him in a nightmare.
Yeah. But if you have any other questions, just email Ben. His email address is probably not there.
Very good.
Here we are. Yeah.